everybody for coming on. Really excited to have you all on today. So obviously Sean played his college ball at Penn State, and just some little background on myself. I played at Gettysburg College, just slightly smaller institution. So as former players, Sean and I were passionate about progressing the game by helping coaches and players, specifically when it comes to film evaluation and player grading. And the mission with this webinar is to help you guys by going over some of Sean's experiences making it to the NFL. So for today's session, we have it broken up into 3 different parts. Where we're going to talk a little bit about some scheme, recruiting, and then dive into some new things in NIL. If you have any questions, just put the comments in the chat, and then we'll address that at the end of each 30-minute session. So, Sean, always a pleasure, man, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course, Justin. No, I appreciate it. So just a little bit of background on me, everybody. Appreciate everyone rolling in here. Really excited, first and foremost, just to run a little seminar. Been playing ball since I was a kid. Played at St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. Won a state championship there. Went on to play at Penn State. Played on some fantastic teams. Won Fiesta Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Rose Bowl, and really had a lot of success with a lot of different teams. Set a lot of records, but more than anything, had a lot of fun and met a lot of people. And then I'm currently a rookie in the NFL, drafted 5th round, pick 149. To the Green Bay Packers, up in Green Bay right now in my new apartment. But really, more than anything, I was speaking to Justin, and Justin and I have been collaborating for a while. Him and I, we met a while back, became good friends, and really with Justin's company, me playing ball, and I also own a company myself. We figured that being able to do this in the summer while we're both kind of right in the middle of everything, allowing everybody just to ask questions, hear a little bit more about, my career as I've learned a lot. Because for me right now, I feel like college football is in this ever-changing world. So a little bit of background on what I created, my company, Limitless NIL. It's a company that helps student athletes monetize their name, image, and likeness. But more so than that, it's really just to navigate everything going on. Because I do think that college ball and really football is changing in a lot of different ways. So really what this webinar is all about, ask questions. We'll go over numerous topics: mindset, performance, recruiting, and then NIL, each being right around 15 minutes to 30 minutes. We'll see how long it goes, ask questions. But really, more than anything, I want everybody to take away the fact of the matter is that the kids coming into your programs, to the places that you're coaching, they have a lot different, I would say, goals in mind. And there's a lot of different ways to navigate the new generation when it comes to coaching. So just trying to be a sounding board for everybody here and coaches alike. Just because I've had a lot of success. I'm trying to give back in every shape and form. So appreciate everybody being on, and we'll roll into the first one. So thanks for having me, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. So it's obviously like every college player's dream to make it to the NFL. And I'm sure you've had countless coaches and mentors through the years kind of help propel you to where you are today. So can you talk about some of the ways that you believe your coaches at like all the levels can best prepare their athletes to succeed?
Yeah, I've had a lot of great coaches. Steve Specht in high school was the first one that was really solid. Somebody that I had a lot of respect for, more of like a military mindset. And then when it came to college, Coach Franklin, similar but different in numerous different ways. Coach Franklin, all about being able to create team chemistry instead of top down, being able to lead within. And I think that's really moving forward the next step in college sports, high school sports, everything in between. really being able to set yourself apart and your team apart by building chemistry within the organization. I think truly it starts with that leadership. We could talk a little bit, Justin, about developing a leadership council, being able to lead from within. But for me, that's where it starts, in your leadership, in the groups that you and your best players, the top players, not always the oldest players, but the ones that are leading by example, leading on an everyday basis, making sure that they're present, on time, prepared, and ones that other kids will be able to follow. I think in this day and age, it's sometimes kind of tough because this generation is much different. They're not like, I would even say Justin and mine, some of the coaches on here. This generation, as I played 6 years at Penn State, and this last group that I played with, it was different to be able to reel them in. It's just they deal with different problems. They have different issues going on with social media and everything kind of get forced there. So the old school mindset of get up, work hard, and everything will take care of itself is kind of out the window sometimes. So being able to relate to them is going to be very important. But again, it goes back to your core group, the leadership group that you have. I think it starts with your quarterback. It always will. And I can speak a lot to that because I've not only myself, but I know numerous successful quarterbacks, not only in college, but also now in the pros, and have learned a lot personally, and had some great coaches alongside. But I would say the last person I want to mention when it comes to coaches and mentors is Ken Wisenhunt. Some of the coaches on here might know Ken Wisenhunt, Super Bowl winning coach. He's fantastic. Somebody who really drove a lot of good wisdom into my head. And we can get into the details there as well when it comes to the mindset on the field, specifically when it comes to being able to command your team in the toughest times. I mean, we got to play in front of some really cool crowds, and some super intense environments. And Coach Wiz was always there to be able to support me and also just understand, what it takes to win a game, what it takes to win a tight one, what it takes to develop a relationship with the coaching staff, not only the coaching staff, but the athletic department. So that way, not only you as a team or you as an individual can succeed, but also the school, the program can succeed as well. Leveling up the program is super important. So I would say, when it comes to that, there's different ways to skin the cat, but with this generation, it's going to be really interesting moving forward. Just how it goes, because it is a different group of kids coming in. So.
Yeah. And going back to your 1 point, Sean, talking about some leadership and the fact that some of the best teams you've been on have been player led. So, and obviously you've had a lot of success going all the way back to your days at St. X. At the same time, the other day, we were just talking about some of the adversity you faced, especially during the COVID year, during 2020. So tell me about the mindset that it takes to constantly be at your best in order to execute at a high level, even when things might not be going your way.
Yeah, I think the comparisons between COVID, I would say my favorite years and the most successful years that we had were the 2019 season, when we won the Cotton Bowl, the 2022 season this past year, we won the Rose Bowl, and then all the way back to 2016, when we won the state championship. And that can kind of relate to a lot of the high school coaches in here specifically. But really, there's specific differences between those three teams and the 2020 COVID team that we had. And really, it's all about the off-season training. That's where it really is put in. That's where it starts. I'm getting adjusted to this NFL mindset. It's a lot different. It is much more individualized, but it's also much more of a business. I think when it comes to high school and college, the programs that you all develop in the off season need to be very structured around team bonding, but also shared suffrage. I would say a lot of it was, especially I look back on 16, 19, and 22, all the workouts, everything was always you create whatever you're going to do, whether it be a workout, whether it be a practice, and you always add one more thing, one more way to push the limits. And I think it does kind of go back to that military mindset a little bit. I think it goes back to the fact that you have to be a little bit hardcore. It is a hardcore sport. It's going to be a fourth quarter sport. And that's when the games are won, in the late parts of the games. And that's why it's so important. But I think in 2020, we weren't together, quite literally, because we couldn't practice. I had Parker Washington, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and Jahan Dotson in the 2020 group as my wide receivers. I had obviously thrown to Jahan before, but Parker Washington was a freshman and Keandre Lambert-Smith was a freshman. And I had not thrown to them until pretty much a week and a half before the first game. And that was a big change. That was a big shift. So the ways that you help your players structure the summers going forward, the ways that you help your players structure the spring, making sure that they have those throwing sessions, making sure that they have a structured program that allows them to not only get around each other, but then allows them to also have some wiggle room to kind of lead by example. I think it is very, very crucially important. Looking back all the way to 2016, that's what we did in the high school program as well. You have your throwing sessions, but we took it a step further and we really, really scheduled out week by week, myself, the captains, and Coach Specht, who I see Coach Brady recognized as a good friend, somebody who he is a fantastic coach, but we would sit down and talk about, okay, how do we want to structure this thing out? Work with the strength staff so that way you're not burning legs. But at the same time, it really does need to be a conjoined effort. And I think it needs to be a conjoined effort, starting with you at the coaching position, and then filtering from the coaching position directly to the quarterback and bringing the quarterback in within the structure of your conversations. Now, he doesn't need to be a part of the decision-making, but I think that bringing the quarterback or your best players, your captains, your leaders into those conversations are very important, and can really change how your season goes. So thinking about that, being very attentive to how inclusive you can be. Obviously, you want to have that top dog mentality of you're the coach, they're the players. They need to have that respect, which will be earned over time, obviously. But at the same time, I think that there is, especially with this generation, a sense of inclusion that goes a long way, especially with the people that have earned it, especially with the players that have earned it. And that has gone a long way in 2016 when I was a senior in high school, 19 when I was a first-year captain, and then 22 when I was in my last year and we were able to win the Rose Bowl. Those were really the similarities when it came to the relationship between the coach and the player.
Yeah, and Sean, going one step further, we spoke about this the other day, just about the importance of having a complete unified front when it comes to administration, your AD, and of course, we were just talking about our coaches and team captains.
Right.
Can you kind of talk about how that works and impacts the program in general? Yeah,
absolutely. So in 16, it was actually funny. So I was a little bit different of a high school senior. I was very in with the principal. I was very in with the athletic director, who was also Coach Specht pretty much. But then also the real athletic director, and we had a very good bond. Everyone was there was a lot of synergy there. Everybody played a really good role in developing the team. And it made not only the team go, but as we won, it made the school go, which was very cool to see. So being able to have that conversation as the quarterback, as the leader. So identifying the leader is obviously very important. I think that there's steps to doing that. I think that they need to be somebody who is consistent. I think they need to be somebody who is liked, but not always loved. I don't think that the leader always has to be the guy that everyone is very comfortable around. You know, I've never agreed with, you know, being friendly with everybody all the time. I think everybody needs to have that little edge to them. And that's been the best leaders. I mean, looking back to Trace McSorley, even, you know, Trace was fantastic in the locker room, but when he went into the team meeting room every day, there was a little bit of a motherfucker to him. There was a little bit of I'm not going to let this day slide by without getting good work in. And that was kind of where I developed my mindset on that. I don't know if it was in 16, but really in my years leading past that, it was really important to have that work mindset. When you come into the building, it's not about always being friendly. It's about working, and it's about having I guess killer mindset. And Coach Wisenhunt talked about it as well with me, just because the way that I would prep, I was very loose early in my career. But Coach Wiz, you know, identified early, just little things. One of the things that have gone a long way with me, and especially with your quarterback, I would talk to him about this, is the best quarterbacks, you look at them after they score a touchdown. What are they doing? Are they running up the field and being a jackass, or doing doing a bunch of celebrations? Or are they, okay, that was a great play, congratulations, a couple high fives, okay, next play, next drive. What is going on? It was third down, we converted, but it was 2-man, and we had not seen 2-man on the film all year. What is our answer? That is how your quarterback, that is the best quarterbacks that I have ever seen. That is the best that I've ever played, is when you're that focused. That enhanced focus is very, very strategic, but it is also, it's worked. It is a skill that you can develop over time. I can say that truly because for me, I was especially in 19, I was the guy running up and down the field, celebrating and doing all the hoopla bullshit. But really, as I developed over the course of my career, and why we had such a successful 2022, and really why I got drafted, was because of the maturity that I showed over time. So I think that self-awareness, like Coach Brady here said, the body awareness, it is truly contagious, and it does develop a lot in the quarterback, and it also levels the whole team. So I think having those conversations, being an open book a little bit with that, and allowing your specific leaders, your players that you need to be that way, having those conversations is very, very important, and I think you should have them very early in the season as well.
Great stuff. And can you go a little bit deeper into the QB and coach relationship?
Yeah. I you know, if you're not meeting with your quarterback at least once, twice a day, one-on-one, I think that I'm not going to say you're doing it wrong, but I think that there are definitely, that you're missing out. The best relationships that I have with my offense coordinator, head coach, was the one where I would start the day in their office, swaying by Coach Franklin, even if it was just to say what's up, because just being present is important. And I would talk to your quarterback about that, not forcing the agenda, because he needs to make up his mind himself. And you're going to find out a lot about him as well. What kind of guy is he? Once you have that conversation with him, if you say, hey, I need you to be, it would be smart for us to have conversations on a daily basis. And he doesn't swing by on that off day. If he doesn't swing by on that day after film to check in, maybe you know what kind of guy he is. But the good ones, the ones that I've been around that have been fantastic, and then when I've been performing my best is when the quarterback is around and you're having real conversations about the team. I think that there's going to be conversations that you're going to want to withhold every once in a while, direct ones. But all in all, I think it is important to bring him in, and the rest of your leaders, the ones that a lot of people are going to see as captains, into those conversations, and allowing them to grow.
Awesome. So we got a question from Coach Brady over here. So right here, Coach was just asking about what would you tell a high school quarterback to help him with recruiting? And also, Coach, we're going to get into recruiting at the end, but Sean, do you want to hit that real quick?
Yeah. I think it really, Coach, do you have anything on that? I saw you just unmuted.
Yeah, I appreciate all you're saying. It's really great, actually, Sean. And I was Steve Speck. I did all the USA football stuff with him for years. And you played with his son, right? With his son on that state championship team?
Yeah, I played with both Hayden and Cam Speck.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Those kids were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing, I work with a lot of quarterbacks around the country now. And, as you probably know, it's become super competitive in the recruiting world for quarterbacks. What is there anything you would tell, basically high school freshman, sophomore, junior? What are some things you already mentioned a few, but what would it if there was like one or two big things that you see in college quarterbacks? Because there's these guys that get highly ranked and don't make it. There's guys that come in and work really hard and they do make it. But what are some of the intangibles or the basics you think that are being missed by some high school kids, or even like all these quarterback trainers that are out there?
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great point and a great question. I think really the basics still exist, and they're still very, very vitally important, especially at the level that I am now. I thought for a while that the media, the way you portray yourself on social and all these different things, you have to be this gaudy personality that everybody wants to attract to when it comes to like the social presence and everything like that. And it was, again, Coach Wisenhunt, who kind of drove me away from that. And then during the process, it was just a little glimpse into the NFL, because I think that the recruiting in college or high school to college, similar to the recruiting when you're going from the college to the pros, that prep in the middle. And so recently, it was really about selling myself as a mature adult, more than doing all the bullshit on the media. And I think it does still apply, because really in the end, coaches are just like you and I. We just want to win games, and we want kids who are going to be respectful. We want kids who are going to be team players and come in with a competitive mindset, but also willing to learn. And I think that goes a long way. Still to this day with coaches, because to be honest with you, when it comes to the media, when I was coming out, I was projected as a 7th or undrafted guy. And throughout the whole process, what I learned was I was having great conversations, and I continued to move up boards, and yet the media didn't portray any of that. And in my mind, I was ready for a late day 2, early day 3, because I knew that the conversations that I had, everybody was on the same page when it came to, okay, I would go in and sell myself the same way that I'd sell anything else, right? Being able to be present. I'm going to add as much value as possible. That was my number one saying. And that is true. I'm going to add as much value to your program as possible, whether that be the practice squad guy, whether that be the first string, and I have to lead not only the team, but the program, whatever it is, I'm going to do at the best of my ability. And coaches still raved about that. And that was why going into draft night, I knew that I had done everything correct. And I knew that I was going to be a higher draft pick than what the media bullshit train portrayed. And it worked out. I was picked 149, which I don't say to gloat. I say more to talk to testament of just doing your work, because I put my head down. I didn't really listen to anything. So that's what I'd probably tell your quarterbacks is, there's going to be all that stuff out there. And really it comes down to performance and effort and showing up. And so that's what I would say, go above and beyond, be that guy who is in the building 24/7, 365, be that guy who is shooting, the coach a text saying, hey, how can I improve after a camp that I went to, or whatever it might be, but just be the guy that shows up. because really in the end, it still will get you to where you want to be. Because I mean, I'm living my dream as a 5th round draft pick, somebody who they wrote off after the season. And now I have an opportunity to compete at the highest level, which is a blessing. So I would tell him, like you said, be present, be in the moment, and don't listen to all the stuff that they put out there, because really in the end, it's still football. We still got to win games. We still got to be a part of a team.
Yeah, and Sean, I think the one thing that really resonated was just putting in the work. That's how you build confidence. It's a matter of, like you were saying, putting your head down, knowing that the work that you've done is going to get you to where you need to go. And I think from just learning from you, that type of confidence is built through nothing but work. And the guys that get up to that highest level are the guys that, like you, have just continuously put their head down and not really listen to the outside noise.
Yeah. And to finish that mindset talk there, Justin, I think it really 100%. I think it does come down to just doing the work. But the beauty of it is when I know we're kind of shifting into the performance as well. So that's the mindset portion. And for performance, max level performance, and when I've performed at my best personally, it doesn't matter what everybody has to say. It doesn't matter if they're booing you in the stadium. It doesn't matter if they're talking shit. In the end, what I would tell my players, and we talk about it all the time, is a turnover, a bad play, whatever it might be. In the end, they didn't see the 6 a.m. workout on the Tuesday that you had that you really didn't want to do, but you did anyways. And then after that 2-hour session, you felt great about it because you knew you put in that work. They didn't see the extra film study. They didn't see the extra walkthroughs. They didn't see all this extra stuff. All they see is that 3 hours that you're playing ball. So yes, there's going to be mistakes. Everybody is going to be human, but they didn't see all that extra work that you put in. So don't allow that whatever that they're going to put out there. Don't allow the outside noise to in any shape or form affect what you do on the field, because they don't know. And that's what I always relay to guys who are struggling, especially young guys like this past year. Like a Nick Singleton or a Katron Allen or somebody like that, who's a young freshman who we needed. And if they'd have a bad game, I would just go to them and say, hey man, like, remember that workout that we had in January where I pulled you in and you showed up at 7 a.m., 6 a.m. and we threw? Yeah, they don't know about that, but I do. And that's why I trust you. And those are the good conversations to have, especially when dudes are down. Because I think that it goes a long way in development. And I think it goes a long way also in their mindset to perform on the field. So I would have those conversations with them, remind them of the work. Because a lot of the times you do the work, you do all this shit in the summer and everybody, gets big and strong and everything like that. But then the season comes around and you don't even talk about the work that you did in the off season or the specifics. So remind them of that, because that builds a lot of confidence. And that's where a lot of my confidence has came from, especially when I'm down bad, is just reminding myself. This morning, I got up at 5:30 and hit an extra session of film because I wanted to, because I want to be confident going into preseason game number 1. So being able to do that.
Yeah. And shifting more into that performance area, Sean, we talked the other day about the Josh Nelson theory. Can you share with these guys a little more about that? Yeah.
So for specific performance, and I wanted to share this, Justin and I were going over the format of this webinar. Something to run by everybody when it comes to specifically on the day-to-day, on how you prep for games, how you go about your business with your players. I know that a lot of people are in the structure of you play a Friday game, you have film study on Saturday, off day on Sunday, and then you come in and practice on Monday, which is great. Good routine there. But then you go Monday practice, Tuesday practice, Wednesday is usually what you have one more practice, and Thursday's your walkthrough. And Josh Nelson, somebody who is highly regarded in the space of sports science, one thing that he made the switch of was when he switched the Wednesday and the Thursday. So we would walk through on a Wednesday and then ramp it up on a Thursday. Not contact, but guys would be getting full speed reps on Thursday, throwing, running, whatever it might be on that Thursday. So just, again, Monday practice, Tuesday practice, you're hitting your red zone or whatever on your Tuesday. And then Wednesday is your walkthrough day. And that really, from a body's perspective, from a physical perspective, is the best way to prime. It's scientifically proven. And Josh Nelson made that switch in 19, and it made every difference in the world. Everybody at Penn State loves this system. They use it to this day. Green Bay uses this system, quite literally everybody. So if you haven't heard of that ramp up progression, it is very important. And I would consider looking into that more, because I think that looking back into my high school career, it was Thursday we would walk through, and then Friday you're trying to get everything loose again on a Friday in the warmups. When in reality, if you get that Thursday work and you kind of ramp it on Thursday, have guys running full speed, because you'll go into a game feeling really, really fresh. So to speak on that full point, Josh Nelson, fantastic sports science at Penn State, taught us that. And I think that that's something that has gone a long way with me, and would go a long way with your high school programs or college programs.
Thanks, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And shifting back into like more of like in a game setting. Can you talk a little bit more about strategy on the sideline, like after plays in between series, and how that communication between your quarterback's coach, your coordinator, how that works in that scenario?
Yeah. So really, it's about routine in everything that you do. So in games, I think having this conversation early and often with your quarterback is important. Being able to say, okay, what do you want to do when you come off the field? Don't let him just go back and sulk, or go back and be too hyped and be all over the place. Have a plan in every walk of the game. So being able to say, hey, after every single drive, I want you to come back and I want to have the initial conversation. What we would do, Mike Yursich and I would do a really good job of, after every time we, high five, whatever, and then walk off. And then we would come sit at the same spot every single time. And we would discuss generalities of that drive. Then I would decompress for a second. So he would go and then talk to the coaches. They'd be going over first down, second down, third down of each drive, making sure that they're getting the right coverages, preparing. Wouldn't overwhelm me with information, allow me to kind of decompress for a few minutes, take in what happened, be able to say, okay. And I would always have a reset. So I would talk to your quarterbacks about this as well, and really all your players. Because I think it is important after every drive, being able to reset and say, okay, whatever happened. So having a mechanism to bring you back to life. So whether it was a big touchdown and everybody's super juiced up, really in the end, the next drive, it does not matter. So being able to have those mechanisms, I would go to the tent every single time for numerous reasons. Sometimes I go take a piss. But at the same time, I would go to the tent no matter what, because I had a routine of doing that. I would go into the tent, I would talk to myself, I'd kind of slow myself down, and then I'd come back out, and then they'd have the information prepped for me of what we're going to do on the next drive, whether we're going to make this adjustment, that adjustment, if we're going to stick with this plan, whatever it might be. But having that in-game conversation before the game is very important, and I think that it can go a long way with your coaches or with your players. Especially when it comes to heat of the moment situations.
Now going post game.
Yeah.
What are some tactics that maybe your high school coaches or even like your college coaches have used in the past that you found to be effective when it comes to like maybe even evaluating film or just performance in general?
Yeah. I mean, I think that really like pregame is super important, but postgame is going to be some of the most important that you the most important steps that you take in developing players. And it's really that plan, right? Because for me in the past years, Saturday you play the game, and then Sunday you come in, and Sunday it's all about, okay, how can I improve? Not only on that game, because now you're gonna watch the tape and you're gonna wash it, but how can you then improve over time and see the trends, be able to show yourself, okay, this is what I really need to prep, not only now, but then banking reps, trying to get ready for the next season as well. So being able to have a plan on that is very important. So for me, I'd come in on a Sunday, get in early, speak to the coaching staffs, and then I would run the tape once through, one time by myself. Then I'd bring the quarterbacks in, and then we would run the tape a second time. And then I'd have more conversations. The first time it was more just kind of grading myself, trying to be able to show, okay, this is what I would have done differently here, just internal conversations. Then bring the quarterbacks in and have those same conversations with everybody as a group. And then lastly, then you're going to watch it as an offense. And so you're really watching that tape. For me, it's 3 times. And that's actually really why I partnered with Justin. I know, this whole thing is put on by CoachTools. I'm using CoachTools to grade myself. Because really what I'm trying to see, because in modern day football nowadays, technology is what's going to win. And that's why, for me, using a tool like CoachTools for post-game performance is going to be so important moving forward, just because, seeing those trends are so important. It's vitally important, because you get into the heat of the moment and the heat of the season, you just forget what you got to improve on. And then at the end of the year, you're trying to go back and you're trying to watch all the tape again and see what you want to do. And should I practice this 3-step drop? Should I do this? Should I do that? But different ways to find technologies. It's going to be fun. I talked to Jordan Love about it, which has been cool, because Jordan's, going into his first year after Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers being one of the best to ever do it. I actually took his locker, which was really cool. But Aaron had a very specific structure, and Jordan's developing his starting quarterback structure as well. And so utilizing specific ways to impact your game after the game is going to be vitally important. And that, again, appreciate Justin and his company for doing what he does, because I think that it is going to be important moving forward, to see those trends, push it forward, and find ways that work for you, so that way you can always develop the players, because development is going to be key, right? Especially when you have the young freshmen, sophomore, juniors. Being able to take the next step in the next year is going to be all about retention, being able to win games in the next year, and then also improve in season as well. So I think, using that technology is super important.
Thanks, Sean. So right now we're going to shift from talking about like mindset, performance, and scheme to recruiting. Before we do that, does anybody have any questions? And if you do, if you could just put that in the chat or unmute yourself. All right. So to jump into the recruiting. So Sean, being a high level recruit coming out of St. X in Cincy, what set Penn State apart from the rest of the programs that recruited you?
Yeah, I think it was really about that family aspect. And that's what I really, when I was having my conversation with my high school coach, that was really what was important to me. And that's where, as high school coaches, and then also college coaches, I think it is important for you to have those conversations with your players that are able to make it to the next level in college. Because moving forward, every kid's different. What makes me tick is going to be different than what makes another kid tick. But I think that no matter what, because the big thing nowadays in college is it's kind of all over the place, right? Sometimes, the offers are all over the place. It doesn't mean it's committable, and there's numerous. I mean, the world is kind of crazy when it comes to that. But bringing the kid back to the roots of the school and why they're going. Because in the end, all the NIL, and we'll get into NIL as well, but NIL is great, you know, for players, I think, if navigated the correct way. But really, in the end, it's what you make of it, because the end goal is still to make it to the pros, right? If you have the opportunity to play in college, that is one step closer to making the lottery ticket of making it in the NFL. And really the dreams come true. So reminding them of that, I would say having those conversations. What do you like about the school? Not the bullshit on social, not the, oh, they showed me this or they showed me that. But really being able to show your kids and show your athletes, hey, this is why, you know, that I believe the school is good. Maybe it's the coaching staff, or maybe it's the way they go about their business. I would be asking guys to go on panels, asking to get in, you know, ask questions to the freshmen who are there. If you're a coach, ask the questions that really are important, because once they get there, it really doesn't matter about NIL and all that stuff that they talked about in recruiting. It's about how can your kid succeed on the field. And I think that's really the most important part. So having those conversations is going to be super important.
And how early on should these high school athletes be starting to prepare? Like, is it right off the bat, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think preparations, there's a lot of different ways of saying preparation, right? I think they should always be preparing when it comes to keeping their social media clean and keeping all their ducks in a row, working hard. That preparation is important. But I still don't believe that they should even be thinking about college or recruiting or anything like that until they at least have 1 year of varsity under their belt. Because in the end, I still talk to Coach Franklin. I still talk to the recruiting staffs and everything. In the end, it still does not matter until you step foot on a varsity football field, especially in high school. And in the same way, then when you jump to college, should you be thinking about the NFL? Not until you have a full year of starting for a program should you be having those conversations. Now, you can have the vision. You can dream big and have goals. I always had goals. When I was an 8th grader, I had goals, but it didn't mean that I was thinking about it every single day. It's about the work that you put in. So I think that's very, very important. But I would say after that first year is when you should start exploring options, camps, all those types of things with your players. I don't think that camps are a bad thing whatsoever. I think camps are important for development as well. But don't get them too excited about it off rip, because in the end, they're not gonna pull an offer as a freshman who's never played a snap of varsity football. They're just not. It's just a fact. So, yeah, that's kind of my stance on that.
Yeah, and for most high school guys, getting recruited in general can really just be a challenge. And
right.
for guys like you, it's a little bit different. So what would you suggest that coaches are watching, and what would you suggest they do in order to help those players who might not have the same opportunities that somebody like you or just a Power 5 guy have?
Right. I think getting in front of coaches is always going to be important. The eye test is still important to this day. So making sure they're in the weight room, making sure that they're testing well and all those things, that's going to be important. But going back to a good friend of mine, Jesse Lucchetta, he plays for the Cardinals right now. He's from Canada, but the basics still apply. So Jesse hand wrote mail to every college program, and would send his huddle. He'd handwrite it, put his huddle link in there, everything, and he sent it to every program every single week. He'd spend hours making sure that he was getting in front of people. And I think that still applies. You know, if your kid really wants to make it, they're going to have to go above and beyond. I was doing the same thing early. After I started playing varsity ball, I was shooting emails, texts, whatever I could to figure a way to get into the program. So the hustle's still there. And I think that's where a lot of kids, they get bummed out when the first month after their season, they're not seeing any attention. You got to go after it, because there's kids like Jesse that are going to be dying to get a chance to play at Penn State, or dying to get a chance to play at a MAC school, or even a D2 or something like that. So pushing and really working to put your name out there is vitally important as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say with your personal experience was like the aha moment for you when you were like, okay, I'm going to get recruited? Like, was there any light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, I think it was after my first year of starting for the varsity team. I would say it was after like winning the first big game. It felt real, like I could play. And I kind of it's all about grabbing confidence. That's always been my big thing. There's gonna be moments that are gonna be tough, and you're not gonna have your best game or whatever. But I would talk to your kids about it, and that's what I do all the time. Is when you feel it, when you're kind of in that flow state of mind, kind of grabbing that, understanding when you were there, and trying to reiterate that over and over and over again in your mind of that winning mentality, because it's contagious once you get it right. And speaking on the mindset, speaking on the way that you think is important, especially with these kids, because a lot of these kids nowadays, as I see it, a lot of them see the social stuff and they see all these kids getting offers, and they might not be getting offers, or they see the highlights and they might not have the same highlights, or they might not be at the level of another kid, whatever. There's so much negative nowadays. Everyone's always trying to show their best. There's no one's ever showing what they're really going through. So I would talk to them about grabbing that confidence, being able to really develop it. And that's what I do all the time. Whenever I have a great practice, or have a really good drive or whatever it might be, kind of taking a second and being like, wow, that was like, kind of understanding how that flow state was, and what put me, maybe I'm a big journaler as well. So journaling about, okay, what did I do in the morning? Was there something different that really got me? And like, I was up, was it something I did last night, whatever it might be? Because I think that, grabbing those specific moments is always going to be important, especially in development. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And just hitting that last point when you were talking about identifying the things that aren't working or you need to improve on, like, is that something that you've started to even like incorporate now with Green Bay early on, especially?
Yeah. Especially, going back into OTAs, I think it's all about grabbing that attention and here it's dog eat dog. It's quite literally who's gonna eat my family or yours, who's gonna have the job, me or you. So being able to have that confidence 24/7 is critical, because there's not going to be every day is not going to always go your way. And really, reps are so limited. Everyone knows, we talk about reps all the time as coaches, as players. Reps are so limited nowadays, especially with the load that you can do. You can't practice as long. There's rules and restraints. So being able to grab that confidence out of the reps that you do get, and then be able to reiterate. That's why I talked about earlier, the technology and being able to really grab that post-game experience is so important, because really there's not many reps to go around. So those reps are so critically important nowadays. So whether it be after the game or pre-game visualization, whatever it might be to get you or your players into that, it'll impact the way your seasons go. And I truly believe that. So 100%, I think having those conversations is important moving forward.
Great. So that's everything we have for recruiting. Same thing as last time. If anybody has any questions, unmute yourself, put it in the chat. And if not, we're going to transition into the NIL portion. So I'll give you guys a minute.
Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So, Sean, talking with, I was a high school head coach, and I just moved on to college. But
yes, sir.
One of my biggest issues I always had, and I truly believe this, was the parents are so unrealistic about what their kids' abilities are, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up in an era, I played in the 90s, and back then I was a quarterback too up here in Pennsylvania, and it wasn't like it is now. And I'm still old, I stay current on everything, but I'm also old school in the mentality of, hard work, people find you, right? Like you were saying, the guy sending out the letters and stuff. And I think that's awesome.
Right.
And I, before every season, sat down with my kids and tried to do with their parents if they would come and explain to them the realities of recruiting. If you're a D2 guy, you're a D2 guy. That's okay. The goal is to get you to college. I don't care if you play at JUCO, D3, D1, wherever it is, And I think a lot of it starts at home, man. And I'm truly, I just believe that in my heart, and I've seen it. And then, going around watching these 7-on-7s and like you were saying, these kids with these offers and stuff like that. Then I got parents coming back to me saying, well, why doesn't my kid have an offer? It's just, it's crazy.
Right.
And I've sat in on things, and, I coached down in Georgia. My wife, I met my wife. She's from Georgia. I ended up in Georgia for a long time. Came back up here, and it's like, the mentality is also different too. Like when you go down the South, it's almost like if you don't succeed, the kids feel like, I'm going back to the farm. You know what I mean? Like the work ethic's completely different. But the social media has gotten so crazy.
Right.
And I pretty much had told my guys, you're not, I want to see everything you stick out, because I'm not because I'm, trying to be a hard ass. It's because I care, and I want to make sure you're not, scaring away people too, because these kids put so committed or whatever. And I'm like, now you scared away other schools from recruiting you, and you don't have a commitment because are you signed? Is anything signed? And you watch this stuff now, and it's like this baby Gronk stuff. I know some of you guys probably seen that. You watch his dad promoting this 10-year-old kid, and you're going, are you out of your mind?
Right.
Like let them develop, man. And I just truly think that a lot of it starts at home nowadays. And I know you guys are younger too, and you've seen it too. And I dealt with it with my own son. He was a baseball player. In the past 2 years, he converted to football, and he did pretty well. And he's 6'2", 240, and he's going to play tight end at a Division II school. And he's excited, man. And I'm like, you know what, dude, you worked for it. You put time and effort in. He loves the process more than he loves the game.
Right.
I think that's, and I can't say every kid's like that. And I'm not saying that because he's my kid, but hopefully that's the mentality I instilled upon him. But it's like, what do you guys feel like with the high school route? Like, I just think that now that I'm out of high school coaching, it's kind of crazy. Like my stress level's completely down. Not dealing with the craziness. I'm just going to school and coaching, guys that want to play. I'm in a Division III school right now, and when you're playing D3 football, you got to want to play. It's not like you're getting anything special, right? So I'm watching kids that are grinding, and I'm loving it, man. I'm like, these kids want it, and we have guys at our program that did play D1 that dropped down for some reason, or they had that extra year from the COVID year, and they graduated and they just want to keep playing. So it's like you got a good mix of kids, but Sean, you were up there with Coach Franklin and all, and Dan Connors was actually on our staff last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dan was at Widener with us.
Okay,
so
cool.
Dan's a great dude. And then, my next door neighbor growing up, Scott Paxson, played at Penn State, and Scott was an All-American there, D tackle back in the early 2000s.
Right.
And I talked to him, and then like you were saying, the one thing I really liked you were saying earlier too is like, the family thing, man. Like I watched Coach Franklin stuff, and I heard him speak, but like I think these families in high school, like, need to get more involved early to understand the process. And I think, like, Justin, you're doing a great job at this too, is I think people need to see this more. Like, you guys need to get into high schools and do webinars to just teach these parents, like, this is the process. Like, if you are what you are, it's what you are. Like, your kid's not getting signed to the 7-on-7 tournament when the quarterback has 80 minutes to throw the football. Nobody's hitting you. You know, like, I can go to a tournament and say, yeah, that kid's got good hips, or, you know, he moves well. He's got the tangibles. But I really don't care, because I don't, you know, you're not throwing the football within 2 to 3 seconds. And also, as a receiver, you haven't taken any hits. So
right.
How can I justify giving you a, you know, I had people coming to me with their 7th grade kid when I was coaching high school. You know, the kid's 5'1", 100 pounds, and they're like, how much money are you going to give us? And I'm like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the where it's gotten up here. Like, you know, Justin knows, like, I was in the Philadelphia Catholic League, and it's a great league. You know, we got St. Joe's Prep. We got big time schools here. And if you can't financially compete, you're really just playing for second best all the time, because St. Joe's Prep's at such a high level. You know, God bless them, that's great. But you can't just go giving money to every kid.
Right.
You know, at level. And that goes into high school recruiting too now, because people are recruiting in high school. You know, it's not like it used to be where you just go to the school in your area. It's like, you know, you have to go get kids from wherever you can get them, because, you know, you're trying to stay on that level with everybody else. But I think that the gist of it is just, I think most of it starts at home, man. I really do. And as a parent of kids who played college sports, and I played myself, it's like, I just think people need to be more realistic about the process. And I think people need to understand is, whatever level your kid plays at, it's a blessing, because there's very few of us that have gotten to play college football. There's a lot of kids who played football, but to get into that next level, no matter what level it's at, you know, if it's at Beaver Stadium or if it's Leslie Quick Stadium with Widener, wherever you're at, take advantage of it, get an education, because, you know, you're a prime example, Sean, like 6 years, right? You know, and then you had to do all the right things just to get to the NFL. Like, dude, you're one in a gazillion. And especially, I think that's great, man. I'm proud of you, and that's good stuff. But these parents have to understand, like, not every kid's you, not every kid's, you know, Singleton. You know, it's just the reality of it.
Right. And I think it really goes back to, Coach, you know, you made a good point of the same way that you and your son had that relationship, right? I think it's important as a coach to develop that same, allow the parents to be involved, and develop that relationship before all the bullshit goes on. Because really, in the end, it's all about relationships. So if I came at you, if I started, you know, telling you X, Y, Z, oh, your kid, you know, no, your kid can't get recruited now, whatever, they would look at me like crazy, because they don't even know me. But the more that you can get involved with having clear communication, inviting them to events or whatever it might be, so that way the parents can truly feel like a part of that family. Now, obviously, there's going to be that pullback of you can't have them on everything, and they have to allow their son to grow and be on their own. But at the same time, I think the way that, you know, the best way and the best, you know, Coach Specht always did a great job, you know, have a bunch of parent parties or parent get-togethers where he would explain why he did what he did, why we have the 6 a.m. workouts, why we have the film study on a Saturday after the Friday night game. Coach Franklin, the same way, did the same exact thing, always including the parents, having designated people to answer questions, whatever it might be. So that way they always feel included. So that way, if you have to have a tough conversation with the parents, they know it's coming out of a place of love instead of a place of to hell with your son. So that's really where, and I think it does truly, it made my parents feel a lot better, especially, you know, the tough times. If I was ever in tough times and then they had to have a conversation with somebody, they knew, okay, they're looking out for Sean. They're they're not out to get him, whatever it might be. And I think you're doing it right, but always remembering like that family is as tight knit as you can be as a team, including the families as well, is very important. But it's a great point, Coach Murphy.
Yeah, and I think Sean, on like, I'll give you, I can only use my own son's example as his father. We went around, did his recruiting and stuff like that, and he was getting some FCS looks, but he was a potential guy because he was a defensive end at 6'2", playing at like 215. But people are like, yeah, maybe linebacker, maybe this, he's athletic. So I took him around, and and he was realistic with me. He's like, Dad, I only played 2 years. I've been around it, but I've only been playing for 2 years. So finally, when we get done, he set his foot on Westchester, which is a really good Division II program. And I asked him why he chose Westchester. And he said, they're the only school that was completely honest with me. They said, don't even think about being on the field this year. Don't worry about it. Come up here and develop. We're going to build you, whatever. And also, Coach Swan, who I play for, Widener's the head coach there now, but his son's there with him. And he also, his son explained to my son, hey, I can guide you through this. I'm the son of a football coach. I know what you go through. So they built that relationship right off the bat. And I thought that was key to my son. And my son, when I asked him, he said, Dad, Coach Swan Jr. basically answered every question I had of being a coach's son and all the crap I had to deal with being your son and all that stuff. So I thought that was huge, man. I think a lot of college coaches, and any coach, I'm just big on just be honest. If you not have a chance, whatever it is, but that little moment with them two sitting in a room for a little bit together sealed the deal. And I thought that was great. And I was proud of him for that decision and why he chose that,
Yeah, and just to attest to the 1 point, Coach Murphy, about like being realistic, like the goal of going to college is to get the education. And for myself, being a D3 guy at Gettysburg College, that was my main thing. Like I knew that I wasn't going to get recruited as a 5'10" defensive lineman to like a Penn State or an Ohio State. So those points I think are critical. And number one, it's about the education. And I think that's what we really can't lose sight of, because in the end, that's what's going to serve you for the rest of your life.
100%, man. And that's the key to everything, man. I tell everybody, like, football's there for a moment. Enjoy every moment of it, man. Like, I came out of high school. I was highly recruited. I got hit by a car. It was gone. I was done, and I went from, I thought I was going to go play for Mac Brown, and I thought I was doing great things, and a drunk driver hit me with a car, and my career was over pretty much. And I got an opportunity to go play D3 football later on after I recovered and everything. But, it's like I try to tell these kids, it's take advantage of the schooling, man. Take advantage of the opportunity of getting to know new people, going to somewhere you really love, like Happy Valley, where it's a huge community. Like, it's football. Football is a tough game, and we all know this. But you got to go somewhere where you feel comfortable. And if the coach leaves, you still love the place. Like, I hate the portal. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I hate it. I look at it every day and I just laugh, and I'm going, there's 7,000 kids in this portal that made a commitment. And that's the biggest thing nowadays. The commitment level's not there. And I think you reached on that earlier, Sean, was, you got to be committed to things. And I'm one of them guys. If I'm 2 feet in on everything I do, if I'm in, I'm in. If I'm out, I'm out. And that's okay. But going in someplace and not competing, I think that's the biggest word nowadays is kids don't want to compete. And I think you said earlier, Sean, you've seen these new breed of guys coming in, even that are a little bit younger than you, and you're going, these dudes don't want to compete. They want to go there and get the picture with the uniform and all that stuff and put it on Instagram and whatever else they do, Twitter. But when it comes down to it, man, there's at that level, especially, it's like there's a 5-star, 4-star sitting right behind you, buddy. You can go. And most coaches will say that nowadays. Like I look at Kirby Smart. My wife's a big Georgia girl, and I laughed. Like their best defensive lineman left the other day, and he was like, "All right, see you later." the grass is greener somewhere else, go ahead, bud. Like I got 5 guys chomping at the bits to compete for your spot, all because he told them he wasn't guaranteed to be the defensive starting tackle. Like nobody's guaranteed, man. Sean, you didn't walk in every year knowing like, yo, I'm the quarterback. You had to compete for that every day. You know, there's dudes coming up behind you that want your job. And I think at any level of football, you know, if you're not a competitor, I don't want you. And it's the same thing when I recruit a kid anywhere, high school, college, is like, first thing I want to know is I want to know your character. Like I want to meet your mom and dad. I want to know what you're about, because mom and dad, like I said earlier, mom and dad can ruin it a lot quicker than the kid can. Definitely. You know, if parents ask certain questions and you're like, are you kidding me? Like there's guys ahead of him, you know, especially in high school level. When you're a freshman, man. There's a difference between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old. You know, when you physically look at a kid and go, yeah, he has the potential to be really good, but you got to get in our weight program. You got to show up and do the right things, because I want to see you develop. I'm here to develop you, not just as a player, but as a young man. And if you're a shitbird, you're a shitbird, you know, but what I mean by that is, like, I can't change all your character because it starts at home. If your mom and dad can't teach you the right things on certain things, then I only have a couple hours a day with you. You know, you live at home. So I want to know, when I recruit people, like, I want to know what their background is. You know, I'll ask people too. You know, I'll ask around the neighborhood or whatever school they're at. Like, yo, I'll walk around the community and talk. Yeah. And I learned that, you know, my son, growing up, like I said earlier, he was a big baseball player down in Georgia. And one of my buddies was a scout for the Dodgers. And he was talking to my son early on in the process, and he showed him a book that the Dodgers used. And he said, McDermott, what do you think I do when I go recruit a kid? And he said, well, you talk to the coach, da-da-da. All the answers the kid would give. He said, you know, the first person I talk to when I walk into a school, and he said, I don't know, the coach, the athletic director. He said, the janitor. And he said, what do you mean? He said, if you can treat the janitor like a human being and like the man they are, because they're providing for their family, and he says you're a good kid, then I think you have good character. And I thought that was kind of crazy, but he was dead serious about it. You know, if you're a high-profile athlete like Sean coming out of high school or somebody, people know you. I don't care if you're just walking the hallways of the school. The people in the school know who you are, right? So if you're not always on your A game, or you know, if you can't really treat people with the dignity and respect they deserve, why would I want to recruit you? Because when it comes down to it, it's a business, right? So if I'm giving you a $70,000 scholarship, you know, per year, and I can't trust you to do the right things, why would I even put my name on that, right? So I think a lot of that is where people miss, man. I think you have to, and I'm not saying like I'm the perfect recruiter or anything like that. I listen to everybody, man, and I take a lot of information in from other coaches. I go down to schools and sit with coaches because I want to learn too, right? But the main thing I'm learning everywhere I go is I have college coaches at high levels tell me, like, these kids just don't compete. Everybody wants to be a 7-on-7 football player. They want to be the wide receiver. You know, it's like they want to be the quarterback, but guess what, dude? You're not that. You know, and one of my favorite things I ever did was I was down at Florida State with Mike Martin. He's the all-time winningest baseball coach in college baseball history. And me and him were talking. He was with my son. And he said, look around the field right now. And he said, what position do you think that kid played in high school? And of course, you know, he was looking for this second base, shortstop, first. He said, well, with these kids in my starting lineup were the shortstop in our high school. He said, I recruit the best athlete. And when you get here, if you're the best shortstop, go ahead and be the best shortstop. And I looked at him, I laughed, because we lived in Lee County, Georgia, where Buster Posey went to high school. And Buster was the best shortstop in the country. Guess where he ended up going to play at Florida State? They needed a catcher. So guess what, buddy? You're going to catcher, and then look what happened to him, you know? So these kids don't understand, like, you don't know what you're going to be. You don't know what you're going to develop into, especially at a young age. You may bloom late. You may be a guy that already blossomed at 14, and that's it. So, you know, I think the main thing is teaching competitive nature to kids is key, but also making sure you know the kind of kid you're getting. You know what I mean? In that sense.
Yeah. And I think go in that same vein of giving coaches and players advice, Sean. So you've obviously been involved in the world of NIL through Limitless. So can you share with these guys like what NIL is really about?
Yeah, 100%. I think really jumping into it with the name, image, likeness. So just a little background. Like I said, I started a company on it, marketing company. For everybody who jumped in late, really the biggest thing is it's straight just marketing, right? You're not going. It's name, image, and likeness. And I think a lot of kids get hung up on it right now. There's a lot of questions I get asked by high school parents, high school coaches across the country, and really the question still applies. Like, how do they earn money? I think that it goes back to the point of, do they have any value to their audience? That's probably the best way of putting it, just because how I see it, right? We run numbers, we do the social campaigns. That's all on the marketing specific side. But really, like, what value do you provide to the company that you're working with? What value do you provide to the community that you're working with? What value do you provide to the school that you're working with? And how can you enhance your name, image, and likeness in that without hurting what you're doing on the field? And that's what we talk about with our clients. That's what I talk about with other athletes. That's the conversations that we're having 24/7. Is just, how can we develop our off the field game without really hurting anything that we're doing on the field? Because that's, in the end, that's the goal, is to first and foremost, you go from high school to college, make that jump. And then once you can solidify yourself in college, then the end goal will still always be to have a chance in the league, to always have a chance to make that team, make that camp, whatever it might be, in the professional division. Because really, I think a lot of kids get hung up nowadays. They see NIL, they see a couple of dollars. A couple of dollars is not going to help you right now. The biggest thing that I've seen over time is, I'm so glad I didn't put NIL in the forefront for myself, and I still focused on the game, because now I'm reaping the benefits in the NFL. And relaying that to the kids, whether they're going to make it or not, I think it just still goes a long way, because it allows them to say, okay, in my free time, instead of picking up the video game, I'm going to go ahead and work on this for my own marketing, or maybe develop a plan for my social media that is, respectful to the team and respectful to the core values, and developing a brand for themselves. So helping them with that, because really, in the end, as much as everybody doesn't like social media, it's here to stay. So it's utilizing it in the best light. And so moving forward, I would encourage you all to have those conversations with your kids. Make sure that you're present there, because it is important to them, and it should be in some way important to you, because you'll be able to relate better to them in the end, if you at least have those conversations. I think harping on it too much is obviously an issue, but having a conversation, setting some boundaries, just to give you a little bit of what Coach Franklin did, and I think it was fantastic at Penn State. He brought all the captains in together when this whole thing came out, and we had real conversations about team rules, how we wanted to set it up, when we could post, or when we could do this, when we could do that. And obviously with Penn State, there's a lot of ways to monetize your name, image, and likeness. There's a lot of campaigns you could run, social appearances, whatever it might be. But really, it's across all levels. Just having the conversation about, hey, at high school, what should we be doing, so that way on Friday we're fully focused on the game? Is it getting off social media the day before? Is it after the game being able to activate, or maybe it's coming together and developing some sort of thing as a team and as a collective, so that way you're kind of building the team's brand alongside of it. Because I think brand building is important, but the more strategic you can be, the better, especially from the coach's perspective.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing you said there, Sean, was, and this relates to really anything you do in life, not just football, is the way that you present yourself is paramount. And what else in the world of NIL do you think could relate to high school specifically, other than just like educating? Like, is there anything that like coaches should be like aware of, or limitations?
Yeah, I think knowing that the rules are always changing is important, and keeping up with that. One of the things that Justin and I have been developing, or I've been developing, and with partnership with Justin, it's been nice, is having a Discord for high school coaches. I'll be able to share that with all of you guys. So any other questions that pop up, we'll be able to give you exclusive access, so that way you can ask those questions and have those conversations. But really, I think more than anything, it's about moving forward, and moving the generation forward, because it's a lot of confusion right now. There's a lot of laws being passed and all those type of things. So being able to keep up with your state laws is going to be important, because they can change very fast. And if your association isn't informing you, you could fall behind. And the biggest thing that I get scared of is it's not about the kid, the freshman who really doesn't have any opportunities like that. It's about the kids that are getting recruited, because the kids that are getting recruited right now are in a world of hurt, because they're just confused. They don't know, oh, what can this college provide me? They're worrying about the wrong things. They're not getting into the work ethic, and they're losing that day by day, at least from what I saw, because they're so worried about what the outside noise is talking about. So really being able to sit down, have those conversations, make it very transparent, make it very, very easy to communicate with them about it. Because I think that the future of NIL can be very, very supportive, but at the same time, it just needs to be honed in, especially from the high school coaches level, and then transitioning into college.
Yeah, and going off of that, the conversation with Coach Murphy about educating parents, it really seems like this is just an extension, almost like an extension where like the parents are going to have to be educated on this whole world as well, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that having those parent conversations, using companies like mine, if you have any questions, please reach out. But really, it will be important moving forward, because a lot of these parents are as confused as the players, and rightfully so, because they're trying to keep up with their recruiting, and they're trying to get their kids in the right gym, and they're trying to get them in the right off-season program, and all these different things. And now you're leveling in money into it, where states at high school, you have 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who can now make money off of their socials, and it's readily talked about, and seen on media. So I think making sure you're portraying in the right light, making sure you're having those conversations, bringing the parents in, allowing groups like mine to come in and have those conversations, just because they're not going away. They're only going to be enhanced. I'm just telling you from firsthand experience. I know what's coming down the pipe. So I think it, shying away from it will do no one good. Having conversations is going to be what really, makes, I think, not only college football, but high school football accelerate in a positive way. So having those conversations is important.
Yeah. So as obviously the expert in NIL, I'm gonna go to you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about this, before we kind of ended here?
Yeah, I think really it's about just having an awareness. Don't let the pissed off side or that was kind of how I was early too, just like off rip. How will it impact the locker room? Kids are gonna be asking for more, or they might they might feel some type of way, and it might create animosity in the locker room or within the coaches to the players. Jumping out ahead of it. I mean, we're 2 years into it now. So making sure that you're ahead of those conversations is going to be super important. Because like I said, it's not going away. So if you have any questions, like I said, I'll drop our questionnaire chat, our company's questionnaire chat in there as well. We're going to be releasing Discords and everything like that. We're rolling that out to high schools soon. So making sure that you're keeping up to date with information. There's numerous ways to do that. But utilizing, innovative companies is important going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So with that, does anybody have any questions for Sean about anything we talked about today? Not just the NIL, because that obviously the last thing we talked about.
Hey, Sean, on NIL stuff, right? Yep. What is the average kid making at a Power 5 school right now? Like somebody that's really got a good NIL deal. Like
it's kind of like scattered a little bit, depending on where you are, what position you play. Also, social media is going to come into play a little bit as well, because there's going to be a lot of BS out there as well. Just with the conversations of, oh, this kid's making X, Y, Z. But it is pretty lucrative. There's schools jumping out and being super aggressive with it. There's some schools that are holding back a little bit. But from what I understand, and when I left, it was kind of on the up, and I know it's kind of peaking right now. So I really, it's anywhere from an average player making $50,000 a year at a Power 5 school, all the way up to $250,000 to $500,000. It really is real. I think there will be a plateau pretty soon, but because there needs to be a return factor, right? There can't just be a pay to play by a booster. I think that there is going to be a correction. I think that there's going to be an association moving forward as well that'll regulate this and create legislation and make sure that players are safe and brands and companies are safe and schools are safe. But yeah, it's a little bit of Wild West, depends on the player, depends on the position. But you can see anywhere from, a low to a low of, that 50,000, because a lot of collectives pay an average, monthly stipend plus, big time names are making extra on top of that. So depends.
Yeah. Cause I was kind of looking at it, and I seen, where LeBron's kids getting all this money and all that. And I get that. But the one thing I did respect, I did see where Arch Manning, the kid, everybody knows Arch now, but I was reading something where his grandfather basically said he will not touch a dime of that money until he starts at Texas, which I kind of found that admirable. Like, yeah, he's making the kid earn it. You're making the name, family name, but you go earn that money and prove it on the field. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy to me because I hear those numbers, but that's about what I heard too, was 50,000 on an average. But now if you are like the girl from LSU right now who's all over the place, the gymnast, right? I actually have commercials with her on them now. Like, she's one of the few. Like, I know a lot of these guys have these NIL deals, but I physically have seen her commercials on TV now. Like, she's doing like yoga pants and gymnast gear and all this stuff. So like somebody like her, she's collecting the money right now from those companies, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. She's probably making upwards to $1 million. Yep.
Okay. So that's something. Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think that's a great thing that you're doing. Going back to earlier where I said having a plan after football, like, you already seem like you got one, which is great. And you already got your deal going. But I think that's a great thing you're doing. I think that's a great thing to definitely for Justin too, like, to get out in front of as many of these schools as you can, especially now. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but they're talking about building a power football high school conference where it's going to be like a national thing, like the St. Joe's Preps and the Bishop Gormans and the Westlake Carrolls of the world are going to all be playing against each other, and ESPN and ABC are going to be, here in the next 2 years, they're talking about putting that on TV. Like, these teams won't be playing local. They'll be playing, they'll be going to St. Thomas Aquinas. They'll be coming up here to St. Joe's Prep. They'll be going here and there. but they're supposedly going to be picking 2 or 3 teams from each state that can afford to do this. So I'm sure NIL is going to be involved in that somewhere too.
For sure. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting moving forward how it all swings out.
Definitely.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so that's everything that we have, everybody. Does anybody have any last questions before we wrap it up today?
Awesome.
I appreciate it, man. That was good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all, and really appreciate the time here. And if you have any other questions, Sean put his email in the chat right there. I'm gonna shoot my email in the group here. So thank you again. Really appreciate the opportunity and the time. And like I said, please feel free to reach out with any questions in the future.
Thanks, everybody. It was great. It was great talking, and I wish everybody the best this year.
Yeah, best of luck, everybody.
Sean, good luck out there. It'll be snowing in about 5 weeks.
I know. I can't wait. Appreciate it.
See you,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks. Bye.